In this second vlog on the concept of sex, we are going to go from trying to define sex and trying to understand the way humans have dealt with libidinal energy and trying to understand on a deeper emotional level what sex is telling us about our growth and our becoming. The first thing to note about the sexual experience is that it is undoubtedly the location of a type of explosive passion. It's such an explosive passion that it can be experienced by the people within that domain or field as infinite or absolute. Infinite or absolute in the sense that everything else disappears and nothing else matters, and there's a type of experience of internal oneness and everything else falls away. And so in this sense, you have the type of image of this drive or this receptivity which would create a singularity, this infinity which cannot persist in time, and that's precisely what becomes problematic. So in order to think on a deeper level about this infinite explosion, this absolute explosion as a matrix or a field, psychoanalysis tends to think about sexuality as a type of force of energy, as we said in the last video, the libido, but a force of energy which attaches to a partial object. So when we think about the matrix of sexuality, what we're thinking about is a type of field of energy which attaches to a partial object, or a field or a partial object which gets attached to by a field of energy. So you might think about that in relationship, in the most crudest sense, to the way a feminine subject might relate to a penis, or the way a masculine subject might relate to a breast or a vagina. This is a way in which a type of sexual expression deifies or absolutizes a partial object. And as the ground level, you work with this structure in sublimation. So sublimation is where this energy becomes transferred to higher domains of mental conscious expression. And many spiritual traditions have used this knowledge to develop higher levels of self-understanding, essentially. Now, in this pathway of sublimation, psychoanalysis identifies a crucial notion in the transition from desire to drive. In the transition from desire to drive, the easiest way to conceptualize it is that desire has an end goal in mind. In other words, when one has a desire to be one with the masculine energy, or when one has the desire to be one with the feminine energy, there is this implicit or unconscious motive which would bring this goal to an end, that you will reach it, that you will unify with the feminine, or you will unify with the masculine, and then the process will be completed. But once this psychical relation to sexual energy fails, and repeatedly fails, one comes to understand that there is no end to this sexual energy. And this is when one enters the mode of the drive. When one is in a mind state of the drive, one's no longer focusing on the end goal or the completion of the process, but rather just enjoying the process, intuitively feeling the process as it unfolds, and understanding that this unfolding is itself the point. It's itself the completion. In other words, when one switches from desire to drive, one's perception on failure in sexuality itself changes. What you perceived as a failure from the perspective of the ego becomes, in fact, an enjoyable liberation. And in this sense, you gain a type of superpower, in a sense, because you can ride the energy wave. You can ride the intense energy wave, which is the sexual energy. This doesn't mean that sexual energy just gets expressed as a pure multiplicity, but it does mean that one is much more focused in the present moment with this energy, instead of the sort of binary choice of either being sort of consciously unsatisfied with the sexual energy and being a reclusive, meditative, non-libidinal entity in the present moment. So you get a synthesis of those two modalities of being, and that is a tremendous source and opportunity for growth. So I hope that this was an interesting introduction to the concept of sexuality, the way in which we experience sexuality in our most intimate dimensions, and thanks for watching.